your official title is Pastor Christian Smith, right? Given what we just talked about offline a second ago, is that right?
You thought about it immediately.
I did. I'm like, well, I am on the record now, so I better.
I mean, yeah, that's the official title, but feel free to call me Christian. That's
Audience, we will bring you into this. Trust me, it will make sense soon. What up, man? It's so good to see you. I mean, Christian, you and I have been friends for a bit now. We've met in person several times. Most recently, we were hanging out with Reverend Otis Moss III, and he had a whole cohort that we were invited to be a part of, spending, I think it was a good 48 hours together. And honestly, it was such a fantastic trip being up there with you guys and just all the stuff that we did. And I mean, dude, it's good to have you back on the show. You and I talk so often that we were joking that when I saw you on my calendar, I'm like, that feels too official for Christian. I wonder if there's like a official reason why he's coming on, like a book to promote or something. But nope, it's just, I have systems in place now and a team that books stuff. So here you are.
Yes. Our people booked this when we could have just texted each other and been like, hey, Tim, you want to do something? Oh, yeah, let's do it. But, we have people.
That is so funny.
So that we can focus on, putting the content out and doing all the other stuff that we do. Yeah.
Tell me about it. Well, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and just who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of get into it.
Yeah, so I'm Kristian A. Smith. I'm a public theologian and a digital pastor. And I come from the Black church tradition. And I proudly speak from that perspective because I believe in the Black church's rich heritage and history and story. And I believe that there is a aspect of some stories that get lost when we don't talk about the way that it impacts Black people. And in my context, growing up as a Black Christian. So I talk about things from those areas, but across the board, I deconstruct harmful theology and build beloved community.
Yeah. I love that. Well, look, here's what I want to talk about today. And we got a lot to get into, you and me, because you've helped me understand the world in such better ways. And I don't know, it's been great just being, a friend of yours. I want to talk about this thing. It kind of popped up organically, but I think it's perfect. I want to talk first about this notion that I hear a lot from people who I think are well-meaning. And here's what they say. They go, Christian nationalism, they're not real Christians. These aren't real Christians that we're talking about. They're not legit Christians, etc. And I've had a real beef with that. And the reason why is because I think that when we say that, we absolve ourselves of the responsibility, especially people like me, from owning the reality that, first off, Christianity is not monolithic, and that number two, these are Christians, that we have an obligation to respond to them and reject their version of Christianity. But I want to get your perspective on this, because I feel like whenever I talk about this publicly, I tend to be in like a minority position. A lot of folks are like, no, like they're just not true Christians. How do you think about that from your vantage point?
I'm so glad you brought it up, because this was not what we were supposed to talk about today. And then I saw you post it on Threads and I was like, oh my God, Tim, let's talk about this. Because you're absolutely right. Like, we both exist in the minority on this topic. And I think the problem is that too many Christians are more concerned with the reputation of Christianity than liberation for the oppressed, than justice for the marginalized. Because we got to make sure we protect the reputation of Christianity in all that happens. So let's make sure we separate ourselves and say they're not real Christians, which just really ignores the breadth and width of history. Even going beyond Christianity itself, like going into the sacred texts that Christianity uses to build its entire doctrine and theology. If we look at the characters in the Bible that Christians claim represent God, well, I'll give you a great example. We cool to talk about Palestine, right?
Hell, I appreciate you asking, but hell yeah, man, absolutely. Are we friends at all, bro?
I mean,
No,
Listen,
yeah,
man.
I do. Honestly, you're right though. Hold on. Can I just say pause?
Yeah.
Here's what the audience needs to hear this. I have been in conversations with progressive or anti-Trump people, and I'll say Palestine, and they just kind of are like, anyway. So I'm like, oh, so your view of like liberation has a boundary. I guess it's the Palestinians. So I do totally get why you said that, because you don't know. You really don't know sometimes. But yes, no, 100% talk about Palestine. Absolutely. Floor is yours.
And I was like 99.9% sure, but I was like, I should just check, because I can go in a different direction. Because
I understand Pastor Christian,
Yes, my title. I want my title. Yeah, so I remember when the state of Israel was ramping up their onslaught on Gaza. I saw Netanyahu doing a press conference, and he was citing 1 Samuel, when Samuel told Saul that God told him to go and wipe out the Amalekites.
Yeah.
And I wrote about that in my book, Breaking All the Rules. Like, the prophet Samuel, who was supposedly God's representative, told King Saul to go and kill the men, women, children, and infants and livestock. Don't let anything breathing live. And when I read that text, because this is what Netanyahu was citing as a reason to go in and slaughter Gazans. When I read that text myself, I'm like, well, let me see, what was the reason? Like, were the Amalekites trying to do something? Were they trying to take over the Israelites' land, so on and so forth?
Right.
Like, there has to be some reason. And then when I read into it, the reason was, you go wipe them out because of the way their ancestors opposed your ancestors generations ago when you were coming out of Egypt. So this is a generations old beef that I now want you to bring back up and go wipe them off the face of the earth. So what are we going to do with that? Because those are the people in the Bible who we say represent God. Like, if we ignore the carnage and the violence throughout the history of this faith tradition, we put ourselves in a position to continue to see it, because nobody's willing to stand up to it, because, they're not real Christians. It's like, stop doing that. Christianity's reputation should not be more important than people's liberation right now.
Yes. Dude, yes. And look, I want to be clear to the audience. You and I are friends. We talk outside of these conversations, so that's why we're able to really be just so blunt with each other publicly, right? Because we've had these talks before. But it really feels incredibly white as well, and it ignores the history and the complexity of the Christian house. This is why I love the house metaphor that I use a lot, because if you think about Christianity as just one true faith, you're gonna miss out on the reality that like a house, there are many rooms, and some rooms are better than others. I don't go into my crawl space, Christian. I don't cook down there. I cook in my kitchen, right? And in Christian thinking, there are rooms, or a basement, as I like to think about it, that has done things that are not good. I mean, but here's how it works, right? In the white evangelical context, no one's a true Christian but us, so the Catholics aren't true Christians. So when someone says, well, the doctrine of discovery happened under Christianity because the Pope, gave the permission, well, those are Catholics. They're not. So they build this whole system where, well, no one is a true Christian but us. But again, that thinking can come into progressive Christianity if we let it. By then we just scapegoat another version that we don't like as being not truly Christian. Look, Christian nationalism is built on power and control. That's been happening in the Christian stream since Constantine, arguably. This idea of God has given us this land, God has given us this nation, God has given us this quote unquote undiscovered land, right? Whatever.
Right.
That ideology is a stream in Christian thinking. Now, it definitely is antichrist, meaning you can't read the words of Jesus and come away
Yeah.
thinking that this is how Christ's like, but it still lives in the Christian house, whether we like it or not. And when we try and kick it out of there, I think especially as white folks, we are absolving ourselves of the moral duty that we have to speak loud against that Christianity, because, oh, well, they're not really true Christians anyway, so why even worry about it? No, this is a form of Christianity, and it is poison to our neighbors, especially our most marginalized ones.
You're absolutely right. And a lot of people just don't even know that history. Like, they don't know the brutal history of Christianity. So that's like one thing. And then you have people who may know it, but they want to avoid accountability so they can maintain their apathy. Because if they have to be accountable for the religion that they claim, then they can't continue to be as apathetic and just like, oh, that's not having anything to do with me. I'm just focused on whatever it is I want to focus on. I'm just focused
Right.
on being a good person, and
Right.
I don't see color. And it's definitely a issue with white people, but Black Christians do it too. Unfortunately, like I see way too many Black Christians. I was talking about it with Donnell Wrights on my platform a couple of months ago. What Black Christians saying, oh, they're not really Christian. It's like, y'all missing the whole point. Like, the point here is not to save Christianity, because
Right.
Christianity ain't saving us.
Right.
So, because
Outreach.
you see what I'm saying? Why are we so stressed about saving Christianity when Christianity ain't stressed with saving us?
Yeah. 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 No, 1,000%. 1,000%.
And let me say,
Oh,
let me say real quick,
please.
I am with you 100% that what we are seeing is not the way of Jesus. I think sometimes people get introduced to me and it's like, this guy doesn't like Jesus. And it's like, I see a very big difference between how people use the name of Jesus and the way of Jesus. Like, people use the name to justify all manner of evil and bigotry. But when you really study the way of Jesus, you can apply his way to what we're seeing. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that, because I am very critical of conservative Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity, anything that incorporates bigotry into its basic principles. I am against it. And that's what we see in the many expressions of Christianity. I am also a follower of the way. And that's why I push so hard against it.
Yeah, it's the same. The reason why I'm so angry, and publicly so, about white Christian nationalism is because I gave my allegiance to the way of Jesus, and I was taught to do that by the same people who are acting in such antichrist ways. Like, it is really still, all these years later, it's so jarring to watch my Sunday school teachers say things online where I'm the one saying, I don't know, maybe bombing children in Gaza and using our taxpayer money to do it is a bad idea. Like, I mean, call me a radical Marxist, but I think
That's
bombing
crazy.
kids is bad, right? Like, these are the conversations I have to have sometimes on social media by people or with people that raised me on the song, Jesus Loves the Little Children of the World. The song was not the little white children of America. It was of the world. And so it is weird. Even 37 years later, it's weird to know those songs and to be like, you guys know that you taught me this, right? Like I wasn't indoctrinated by like some left-wing, Marxist institution. You, my Sunday school teacher in my non-denominational Baptist church who voted Republican your whole life, you taught me this. And now you're shocked that I'm holding it as like a standard that I won't compromise on. Like,
yeah. Because there's a difference between theory and application. People love theory. Theory is easy, Oh yeah, Jesus loves the little children, all the little children of the world. That just makes me feel so good. That's just theory to them.
yeah.
But when it comes time to actually apply it, that's a totally different ball game. Because when you apply it, you got to do some work. You got to take some accountability. You got to face some reality. It becomes more than just lyrics that you recite, but a life that you live. And a lot of people who are in this fundamentalist Christian indoctrination, they're not able to get to that point of acknowledging these realities, because it puts their faith at risk. It puts their comfort at risk. It puts their worldview at risk.
Here's what I can't wrap my head around, though. And it makes you wonder if maybe then if I was never indoctrinated in that way, because here's the thing, right? My evolution and the evolution of a lot of people listening to this who grew up in like this white evangelical fundamentalism, a lot of the evolution we had felt very natural. Like it wasn't for me. Okay, so the story for me isn't like one day I was like, whoa, I'm a liberal now, so I'm going to have all these new biblical views, right? That wasn't the journey. The journey was, I believe this so much, I believe what they're telling me so deeply that I really mean it when I say I will never compromise the faith, and I will always be the best follower of Jesus I know how to be, no matter the cost. Like I really ingested that belief system and that ideology. So when Trump happened and when everything else happened, I was really just using that framework, and that framework led me out of the system now that taught me those things. And so I really don't know, and I mean this, Christian, because you know, like this is a sincere thought. I spend probably too much time trying to understand how people who grew up like me and prayed the same prayers I did and believed the same things I did look at what's happening and go, MAGA, yeah, or this is a biblical administration, or this is a Christ-like position, or I'm not compromising my faith by supporting the man who was best friends with a pedophile and who sexually assaults women. Like I truly do not know how some of my peers who grew up in the same church as I did have that view. It doesn't feel like to me I did some 180. It feels like I lived into what I was taught to live into. That's what I think that is the biggest cognitive dissonance I have in my head still. It's like I don't feel like I really changed, guys. I just evolved and took what you taught me to heart. That's what's so weird for me.
Well, to evolve is to change. You can't evolve if you don't change. So you did change because you evolved.
For sure. Yeah.
And you are in the minority, right? So as crazy as it seems to you, you look that much crazier to them.
I know.
And you're in the minority. So if you go off of, you know, what the majority are saying, then you're the one that is going against the way, because however the indoctrination set in, because it sets in different for everybody, and everybody has different lived experiences that shape how they internalize information. For whatever reason, it didn't stick with you the way it stuck with most of the people around you. So I don't know if you consider, you know, if somebody would consider that a blessing or a curse. Right. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, like I have to remind myself all the time, Christian, you're in the minority. I know this, all of this stuff that you're saying just makes perfect sense. And I'll tell you what my wife says to me all the time. And maybe we can both use this. She always tells me, like, I talk to her about stuff, about how ridiculous something is. Like, can you believe the government just blah, 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 and this and that? And why are people accepting this? And yeah, yes. Right?
You're in my head.
Yeah. And then she reminds me, like, most people aren't as concerned with other people's well-being as you are. That's not common to be so concerned with everybody being okay, because most people just want to be okay for themselves. That's where most people are. They thinking about how they gonna get through. They're not thinking about everybody. That's why justice work is so isolating.
Yeah.
So you know, as crazy as it seems, we the ones that's crazy.
I guess so. I guess we have that. I guess we're toxically empathetic. You know?
Yeah, we want everybody to be okay. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to.
At the end of the day,
that's it.
I want everybody to be okay. I want everybody to have what they need.
That's right.
I want everybody to have access to healthcare, and I believe that's Jesus. Jesus, when he introduced his ministry to the masses, he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me for The Spirit has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. That sounds like economic justice to me. Release for the prisoner. That sounds like prison reform to me.
Mm.
Uh, uh, Recovery of sight to the blind. That sounds like access to health care. And he said liberation for the oppressed. So am I not being like Jesus when I'm trying to live this out? But to most conservative Christians, no.
That
they got some totally different version of Jesus.
It's that's it, man. Like I want my MAGA neighbors to have access to affordable health care.
Yes.
Like I want their kids to be able to go to a top tier public school and their teachers not have to buy their own school supplies, right? I don't want my MAGA neighbor to be afraid to call the ambulance because they might end up in medical debt. I don't want my MAGA neighbor to have to work 2 jobs or have both partners in the house have to work in order to keep things going. I don't want that for them. I really don't. I think that is one of the biggest differences in general, broadly speaking, that I see between like what we're trying to do along with many others and like this MAGA movement is the MAGA movement is very clear that they want rights for certain people groups reduced or destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Are you trans? No healthcare for you. Are you trans? You shouldn't be allowed to be around society publicly. Are you gay? You cannot get married to who you want to get married to. Are you a black person in America? We're not going to tell you the truth about history, right? No. That's you're a DEI hire, right? Just marginal. Are you an immigrant? To hell with you. Yeah. And I'm the complete opposite, where I want a society where even my political opponents are able to live and survive and flourish in an economy. By the way, I think what really gets me here, Christian, and you got me ranting now, but what really gets me is that it's not like we live in a country that is struggling economically. We live in the richest country the world has ever seen. Now, how we got that money is completely problematic for sure. Don't misunderstand, okay? So I'm not saying that we're just this really good, benevolent nation and we're just rich because of that. Obviously, imperialism, colonialism, etc. But we are the richest nation in America, in the world. And you're really trying to tell me that in this country, affordable healthcare is out of reach for every American or every person within its borders? But we can fund the military up to $1 trillion. We can pay. We can subsidize corporate bailouts and money, hundreds of billions of dollars whenever we need to, no big deal, but we can't get affordable healthcare because that's socialism. That's, I think, what grinds my gears the most. It's not like we wish we could have it if only we could afford it. We could get it done tomorrow. We could get affordable education done tomorrow, and we choose not to. And instead, most white Christians are so concerned about the trans woman in sports, all like 5 of them in the college world. Like literally, I mean, legit, there's like between 5 and 10 trans athletes in the in the NAACP. You know, like legitimate. And they're more worried about that than they are the fact that they might go into medical debt at any time and be bankrupt because of it. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, that we're the crazy one, but when you say it, it's like, this is such a clear decision. I mean, dude, it's like, do you want $1 million or do you want to go into debt? Well, obviously you want $1 million. It's that clear to me, you know? Like, do you want to get sick or do you want to stay healthy? Like, it's that simple. And for some reason, here we are in these stupid ass culture war talking points. It's crazy.
It reminds me of a quote from James Baldwin. Like your rant reminds me of, like, you know, what black people have been ranting about since we got here. Like literally for hundreds of years, we've been ranting. And James Baldwin has, like, one of my favorite James Baldwin quotes is, to be black and relatively conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. Just relative consciousness as a black person, right? And you're white, but you're relatively conscious. You're aware of what's going on. You're paying attention, and you actually give a damn about people. And I think that's where you and I have connected. Like, we both really care about people. Like, at the end of the day, we want everybody to be all right. And when you are wired to want everybody to be all right, it's infuriating. And I think, you know, I don't particularly care for the doctrine of like total human depravity that comes
Yep.
from Calvinism.
Yep.
Um, and I don't like it because we're taught to apply it individually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am depraved as an individual. But when you apply it to the scope of humanity throughout history, and you see how we have murdered each other and how we have destroyed our land, destroyed lands, and so on and so forth. And of course, a lot of that is European colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is something like maybe Calvin was coming from that perspective.
Yep.
Like, you know, when I look at us as a unit, we do some pretty foul shit.
Yep.
And maybe we need a divine power to keep us from doing that as a unit, but we apply individually because we don't want to deal with corporate sins.
Right.
We don't want to deal with systemic issues because that requires too much accountability.
It's funny how like you're in my head because I've over the past maybe like year, I've thought about that. Not in the way you framed it was really helpful for me as well. With like, yeah, it's not about it's not about the individual side because that side's so problematic. But on a collective side, I thought about that. I'm like, I'm not a diehard total depravity person anymore. But I kind of get how someone can be like, yo, humanity is wicked. Because
There's
you look
something to
around,
it.
I mean, less than 100 years ago, a nation decided to create concentration camps to burn Jewish people alive.
Yeah.
Like millions of them,
Yeah.
right? Children, men, women, by the trainload, right? And that war, World War II, cost millions more lives. And this country dropped two nuclear bombs on civilian cities, right?
Yeah.
And you do wonder, like, I think humans have done a lot of good. Don't get me wrong, technological advancements and medical things. But like we've done some pretty messed up, like evil shit to each other and to the planet. And there's something about this depravity thing that maybe there's a kernel of truth here. I don't want to throw out ideas just because I experienced really unhealthy versions of them. Because I don't think that I'm inherently as an individual totally wicked and depraved, although I've done bad things in my life, who hasn't? But as a collective, I'm not thrilled with the results so far.
Yeah. It's like humanity as a whole has a mob mentality. As an individual, you're rational.
Yeah.
And then you get into a mob and it's like it just overtakes you and now you're doing irrational shit. And I believe like that's what happens. Like, because we look back in history and we see it, but we see it right now. We see it right now in Gaza. We see it in Sudan. We see it in Congo. We see it in Haiti. We see it in other countries that I can't even remember right now because they're like authoritarianism has taken over like 70% of the countries or something like that. Or like 70% of the population are under authoritarian rule. Like, so we don't even have to look back into history. And I think that's another thing that we should spend more time doing, because I know when I was growing up, a lot of the education about racism was about racism in the past. Like, man, look at what we overcame in the civil rights movement. And now we got the right to vote. And now we can go wherever we want to go with free movement and so on and so forth. But we weren't having the same level of conversation about the prison industrial complex and the war on drugs and the war on crime, which was all just dog whistles for wars on Black people. Because we were still celebrating that we got the right to vote. When white supremacy didn't go away, it just changed the messaging. It's like humanity is a shit show sometimes.
I love that, honestly, because it's funny. I've been thinking about things that have even happened in the past couple of years and how they're minimized when they're happening. Then you look back and say, no, that was like super terrible. One example is Ahmaud Arbery, right? I look, I was still in pretty well. Let's see. TNE did not start yet. It didn't start until 2021 or 2020. But I was still in moderate evangelical spaces. I was still probably like moderate, starting to head left politically. I had questions, but I wasn't fully there yet. And the murder of Ahmaud Arbery was a moment where I was like, oh my God. Like I can't tell you why that particular video, like, something in my brain broke finally. Like I started seeing the light for real this time. I know something is really wrong with race in America. But I remember my friends, people I knew that I went to church with, sending me videos. Oh, well, he was armed. Of course he wasn't. Oh, he was breaking and entering. I remember the propaganda that the right used, Matt Walsh and others, to really minimize that what happened wasn't what you think. But now we do know, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, because it was proven in court, that those men were racist and that they were hunting a black person that day. Right? That's part of what they were charged with. It was a racially motivated hate crime, what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. But in the moment, there was so much uncertainty because of how right-wing media and other media spaces try to play the both sides game, right? So I noticed this even in my own lifetime, where I'm like, wait, I look back now and I can easily say with confidence, it was a hate crime what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. It was racially motivated. But in the moment, oh, don't rush to conclusions. He might have had a weapon. He was trespassing on a construction zone, right? All of the flooding the shit mentality happens, and you can't see what's happening right in front of you. And we keep doing this. Elon Musk giving a Nazi salute at Trump's inauguration. Every single group besides right-wing media was like, that's a Nazi salute. Even like the alt-right was like, yep, we love Elon now. That guy's giving Nazi salutes, you know? And like the left was like, that's a Nazi salute. And then you have Ali Stuckey. No, guys. He was just giving his heart out. It's like, do you hear yourself? But again, you look back, it's so easy to say it now. But in the moment, there's so much uncertainty about, well, what really happened? What was it really? It's so frustrating.
Yeah, it goes back to accountability. Because if you deal with it in the moment, you got to be accountable for what that means in the moment. But if you can look back at it in the past, like, oh, that was so terrible. I just hate that happened.
Oh,
You know, there's a saying that's floating around that I love that says, one day everyone will have always been against this. One day everyone will have always been against the genocide in Gaza. One day everyone will have always been against the MAGA regime.
Wow.
One day everyone will have always been against the January 6th insurrection. But in real time, that requires too much work. And then we're all to a certain degree, particularly in the age of social media, living in these echo chambers.
Yeah.
Right. So like you were saying, if you get all of your news from, I mean, really mainstream media at this point, I mean, at any point, really, because when you look at the news, the reason so many white people think black people are so violent and criminal is because when you watch the news, they only show black crime. Yep. Like most of the crime you see on the news is black people. That's so right. You assume, oh, those people are just violent by nature.
Yep.
You know, so it's creating our perception of reality, and it doesn't just work on white people. Have you ever heard of the doll test?
No.
All right, so there was a doll test, an experiment that was done on little black kids. I think back in it was like mid 20th century, where they would sit a black kid down and they would put a white doll in front of them and put a black doll in front of them that looked like them. Okay. And they would ask them questions about these two dolls, like which of these dolls do you think is more beautiful? And the black kid will point to the white doll. Or which of these dolls do you think is more ugly? And the black kid will point to the black doll. This was an experiment because their perception had been created based on what they saw represented. That's why people talk about representation all the time. Like why representation is so important. Because if you can't see any positive images of yourself around you, you start to internalize that, like that represents you. So if it's happening to us, what is it doing to the mind of white people when they constantly see black people being portrayed as violent criminals?
Yes.
It makes it easy. It makes it easy to explain away Ahmaud Arbery. Well, of course, he's a violent criminal. They had to protect themselves.
Yes. And then you think about how between the podcast world and social media world, so many of these white Christian nationalists are getting more and more outspoken about that. Like, I'm sure you've seen the video of Brian Swab, whatever his last name is, the guy who was talking about how, yeah, a black person can attend our church if they repent for the sin of essentially being black. You know what I mean? In black culture, or other people who I won't name. So I don't want to give them any more clout. But people saying that you should raise your children to be among mostly white people because black people are inherently more violent, right? Like, all those narratives get reinforced. And you're right. And listen, on this show, we're really focused on like the intersection of faith and religion and politics. So we don't talk about it a lot. But the mainstream media, that term, absolutely there has to be some accountability here, because I'll tell you what, dude, we are living through a blatantly Christian fascism regime, and they are so milquetoast on this. They are so they are so spineless in calling out the level of authoritarianism and the lies and the absolute bullshit. There's no anger in their voice. There's no sense of like what are we doing as a country? And there has to be some complicity for that, 100%.
The media is funded by the same people who are funding the authoritarianism. They can't speak out against, because if they do, they're gonna get fired. Yeah. Right? That's what happened with Joy Reid. That's what happened with the black woman that just got fired from the Washington Post. Like people who speak out are not allowed to stay in these positions because the funding is coming from the same place. That's why the Bible talks a lot about the love of money and how you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and mammon. That's talking about wealth. Because the love of money is the root of all evil. So, and that's why I appreciate the Bible, because it shows us there's really nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
And the stuff that we're struggling with now, humans have been struggling with for centuries and generations. And even back then, humans knew that if you became intoxicated with the pursuit of wealth and power, you would do damage to humanity. So the people who put money behind these, because we talk about it all the time behind the scenes, how much money is behind the conservative Christian media, right? And how expansive that funding is. It's the same thing with media. I mean, you looking at like Paramount buying up you know what I'm saying? Is the money that flows through this is what a lot of people don't see, which is why we always talk about follow the money. Because if you see where the money is coming from, that's going to tell you why people talk the way they talk.
And a lot of, we live in a country where like 4 or 5 companies own 95% of all the media, or 95% of all the food brands. Like, have you ever seen the graph of like what drinks Coke owns and what drinks Pepsi owns? They own everything. Like, both of them own. You think Powerade is its own brand? No, it's owned by Pepsi. You think Gatorade is its own thing? No, it's owned by Coke. Like, everything in your convenience store that's a drink is most likely owned by one of those two companies. Period. And so we don't even realize, like, it's called the illusion of choice. You think when you're flipping through the TV stations that you have choice. You really just have programming from like 3 major companies: Time Warner, Comcast, Universal, I think is the other one, because they all bought up these smaller Viacoms and other other production networks. And the same thing goes for our food. And so you're right that we are living in a time where corporate media is largely in service to the corporatocracy that's bought off our politics. I mean, Trump is a billionaire. The most billionaires ever in the White House are in this regime, in his cabinet. Like, what do we think the fruit of that's going to be? It's obvious.
And I think, Tim, we need to recognize our power as the people, because Jimmy Kimmel was shut down because of the way he spoke against this administration. And because it impacted enough people and enough people took action, he was reinstated over the weekend. Enough people unsubscribed. Because I remember when it happened, I was thinking, okay, people are unsubscribing. And, I went into my business brain. I wonder how much of Disney's revenue comes from advertising versus subscriptions, how this is going to impact their bottom line. Because the impact this has on their bottom line will determine how they respond to this.
Yeah.
And they reinstated him over the weekend. So we have the power as people. And when I say we, I'm talking about all of us, black, white, everything in between. We have the power as people to affect change. But, unfortunately, a lot of people want class solidarity without anti-racism. And that just doesn't work. That doesn't work.
Look, I like that. What do you like? I think we're kind of in a perfect storm, which this has happened before, right? Like you said, nothing new under the sun. But I do kind of see like two perfect storms happening. MAGA is perfect storm number one, but perfect storm number two is like the opposition, I guess if we can call it that, seems pretty siloed and divided and can't seem to get united, broadly speaking. And I understand why, for the record, in a lot of ways, but also in some ways I'm like, ugh. Like, guys, sometimes it feels a little purity testy, but also I don't think that standing against the bombing of children is a purity test. I think it's just a moment of moral clarity, right? So, like, the fact that we have Democratic lawmakers in this country who can't even say that bombing children with our tax money is bad, I think is really telling. And that to me is not a purity test. That's like a morality test. Like, where do you stand on the obvious? Because if you can't stand on the right side of something that's so blatantly obvious, right, with tons of video flooding our social media of 5-year-olds missing limbs or their guts spilling out, if you can't say something about that, how do we trust you to speak out against Christian fascism that's so good at propaganda? We can't. And that's proven true, right? So many Democrats right now are spineless in how they approach. I'm not sure if you watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
I catch clips every now and then.
The way he goes after, is it Chuck Schumer, is hilarious, because Chuck Schumer is like this, establishment Democrat type. And the way he talks about this stuff, it's like, are you in reality, bro? Like you think this stuff is funny, or that you're making funny jokes, or that because you said a statement, you've done your due diligence? Like, where is the spine that is needed to resist this? Because you and I know, both because of our Christian background and some of our overlapping experience, we both know that Christian fascism ain't looking to negotiate. It's not looking for good faith. It's not looking to find a deal with Democrats to make America better. That's not how Christian fascism is built. It is built to dominate. It is built to eradicate. It is built to colonize. And so when I see these establishment Democrats try to play footsies, like Gavin Newsom, I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but we're friends. I would say this to you off camera, never on camera. It's like, I watched Gavin Newsom have Charlie Kirk on his show. And by the way, you know this better than most. I am not opposed to having those conversations publicly. I do them all the time. But my problem with Gavin was that he just acquiesced. He acquiesced to basic, like, factual stuff. And Charlie Kirk, after that interview, did a newsletter to his audience. And I have a copy of it because I'm on his newsletter, where he says, Patriot, I went on Gavin Newsom's show and I made him concede every major point. This is a huge win and shows that the Democrats are coming more to the right. This wasn't about good faith. Gavin Newsom's thinking, oh, if I put my best foot forward for Charlie, he's going to reciprocate. No! Charlie took a big old dump on Gavin to his audience, saying, look, I got the dude. I got one of their heroes. I got him to acquiesce on trans women in sports, all 10 of them. That's what I don't get from some of these people. I'm like, you don't understand what you're dealing with. If you think that's going to do it, you're actually only enabling this movement. You're not actually stopping it.
I'm sitting up here thinking about, like, how important it is to listen to Black thinkers and Black scholars, Black liberation theologians, and particularly in times like this, because these are the things that we're always saying. We're always talking about this stuff because it's ever present. Charlie Kirk has always been a danger. But the voices of Black scholars and Black thinkers kind of get put to the side. That's Black stuff. But and that's a part of us being pushed out of the main narrative of the country. So like Black history has to be over here to the side, and now we just need to erase Black history, like ban the books, no CRT. Like critical race theory just basically examines how do these particular events in history and policies, how did they uniquely affect Black people? That's it. Learning how stuff uniquely affects Black people. But this government doesn't want you to know that.
Right.
They don't want you to know how that stuff affects Black people. Because if you did, you would understand how it's going to affect you when it comes to your doorstep.
That's right.
So where we are right now is a lot of people are waking up to Black people's reality.
Yeah.
Since we've been here. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, white guy, works in higher ed. And when Trump came into power and basically threatened all these institutions about like continuing DEI programs, my white friend who's in higher ed said, yeah, you know, we aren't getting rid of it, but we kind of need to change the name. So we're kind of talking in code, and it's really different and weird. Like, I'm not used to this. And I was like, yeah, that's how Black people always are. We always have to talk in code. Like, that's code switching. That's what we do for a living, right? In times like this, we would have something called hush harbors, where we go, we get away from everybody, and we strategize together. Like, this has been our lived experience, but nobody listens to us. We're just always a nuisance.
Yep.
You know, and now that level of tyranny is coming to the doorsteps of people who always thought it was just over there, and Black people were just making a big fuss about nothing.
That's
right. When NWA wrote release F the Police, people just thought they were being violent, not recognizing Black people have been getting brutalized by the police in our communities for no reason. And that's not just something that we heard about on TV. That's our lived experience.
Right.
I live that. I have lived being profiled and mistreated by law enforcement on a number of occasions just for existing. That's not a random story that gets isolated and put on the news. That's a real lived experience. So that's why I appreciate you for highlighting Black voices on your platform, because I know your audience is primarily white. And if not for you, they probably wouldn't hear Black voices the way they do. Because it's important. Like, the caste system of America, the hierarchy of America was established based on race.
Yep.
And it was explicitly based on race until the Civil Rights Act. But the Civil Rights Act didn't make racists any less racist. It just made racism politically incorrect.
Yep.
And then they started strategizing how they can move open white supremacy back to the mainstream. And here we are.
Here we are.
But now, because it can't be explicitly about race, we got to sweep in a whole bunch of other people too. You know, because we can't, you know, we can't just say we don't like Black people. Right. But, you know, we'll make it about abortion and trans people and gay rights, and women need to go back into the house and not work, and, you know, yeah. Now I'm ranting.
Right. No, rant away. I mean, I think these are the best conversations, the ones that, you know, two friends are on the air talking, because it just feels so. It's what we would say if we weren't recording. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, dude, like, you know this. I'm still a few years into my own journey of, you know, trying to decolonize and see the world through a different lens, and just be more aware of like what the hell is going on and where it comes from. And one of the realizations I've had over the past like year or so, maybe 2 years, more recently in the year, and look, no shade to my white progressive friends. I mean, I'm a white progressive in a lot of ways. I'm a white dude and I'm progressive, you know, so I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to them. But I have found myself at times being like, I don't know, guys, it kind of feels a little still like white. This whole approach still feels a little white. And frankly, I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and I don't have a solution for this yet, which maybe even that is still a sign of whiteness, always trying to fix things. But I'm just saying.
It's a man
But
thing too.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably true.
yeah.
But you know, I've learned that one of the casualties of whiteness is also white people in a lot of ways. Now, that's not to say that the way whiteness manifests towards black people versus white people is the same. It's not, obviously, but there is a sense of, I don't have any kind of cultural heritage that I draw from, even though I'm Italian and Greek and German. Like, there's three pretty diverse traditions that are very different in their own ways, with their own ways of thinking about things and their own just heritages. And I don't think about myself that way at all. I think about myself as a white guy in America. Like, it's just white. I'm just a white dude. There's no rootedness for me ever. And I had this realization that I think one of the reasons why, in particular, white evangelicals have a really hard time is because when they deconstruct, they're actually losing the illusion of an anchor that grounded them in something greater than themselves and gave them some kind of identity. Mm-hmm. And when they lose that, you're like, well, what can I go towards? Like, I don't. There is no ancestral tradition for me, because I've been so untethered from my own heritage my entire life. Our friend Timmy Spencer Helms, I love them. And they talk about in their book, Faith Unleavened, how in the black church tradition, there's still a sense of we're black Americans. There's still a heritage that we're drawing from. That's not how it is in the white church at all. There's no heritage. It's just you're a Bible believing, gospel preaching Christian. That's all you are. Your identity is in Christ. That's all it is, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you lose that, it's just as much a identity crisis as it is a theological crisis. You're like, well, who am I then? Because there's nothing to fall back on. There's nothing to go deeper into. You feel like you're a hot air balloon that was anchored to ground, and someone cut all the ropes. Now you're just floating, having no clue where the hell you're going to go. So I do think that what happens is, and I say this, audience, talking to myself as well. I see these things in myself usually first before I see them in other people. But then what happens is that you start unintentionally recreating the same systems that you were taught to create. You just do it in a way that has different lipstick on it, right? So maybe you're a little more social justice minded, but you're still kind of white centered, right? You're really about now, all the right words and being inclusive and being an ally, but you're declaring that's not being given to you by the people who give those labels to you, because you're not actually in relationship or in solidarity with them beyond the occasional social media post, right? Like proud ally, rainbow flag, and happy Juneteenth. It's like, okay, that's cool, but are you doing the actual work beyond giving the platitudes? And so I have found that as the new Evangelicals has been evolving over the past couple of years, I'm like, I think long term, and I think we're on this path, I don't really want TNE to be largely white-led. I think that our board needs to be really diverse. I think that our leadership team needs to be really diverse. I think ultimately white men like me certainly have a role to play in this for sure, but we should be learning and being led by different voices that aren't more white men. And then we can bring our skills to the table to help amplify that stuff and to help build the systems. But I just don't think that recreating white progressive systems is it. I don't think that's really where the beauty and the really different way of thinking, that decolonized approach is. And again, no shade to many of my friends who are progressive white people. I mean, we need them, absolutely. But I've had enough glimpses where I'm like, if I'm not careful, I can end up kind of being a supremacist all over again with a new gospel to preach that everyone has to assimilate into that's still very white-centric. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I've been there for the past year thinking about this.
That makes a lot of sense. You actually just brought me to a thought that I've been throwing around that I'm probably going to wind up writing a book about. It's a concept that you just alluded to. You talk about the purity test.
Yeah.
I'm developing some thoughts around the concept of progressive purity culture. Mm-hmm. That progressives have created our own, depending on if you include me in that own version of purity culture.
Yes.
Which is why we're so fragmented. Because if you don't check off every single box on this purity test, which is a culture, right? We saw it recently with the backlash to progressive content creators getting financial
Dude,
assistance.
don't get me started on that.
Dude,
Jesus. I lost
pe-
my mind on that piece.
people were acting
What?
like they were betrayed by content creators because they got financial support for the work that they do and they got training.
I think the
That was
highest paid was like $8,000 a month, which is, by the way, which is good money, but that ain't like millionaire money, bro. That's like just surviving in America money. Honestly, that's 96 grand a year in New Jersey. That's below the livable wage that they recommend.
exactly. But in progressive spaces, that's too much because one
Yeah.
of the aspects of progressive purity culture is a vow of poverty.
Mm.
If you don't commit to living below a certain status,
Mm.
then you don't get to be progressive. I remember in seminary, listening to some of my classmates talk about how preachers who wore nice clothes were somehow too materialistic and not really, all about Christ. And I was like, what? You can't wear nice clothes? Like your pastor's $500 pair of shoes are not why your health costs are going up.
Mm.
Your pastor's really nice suit is not why you can't afford eggs.
Right.
Your pastor's nice house, and I'm not talking about people who fleece the flock and
Right. Right. Yeah.
exploiting their team members. I'm talking about people who have done right by everybody, who have built financially healthy ministries and organizations. Like them driving a nice car is not the reason why you can't afford gas and why rent is so high,
Yeah.
right? So if we would come together and focus on the real problem, because it's probably about it, the wealth of the top 1% could resolve all of the financial issues that we're facing right now. All of the
Yes.
financial issues that we're facing right now. But you talked about how white supremacy or whiteness has a negative impact on white people too, as far as identity. And it is also just from a material perspective, it has a negative impact on white people. If you go back to, prior to the civil rights movement, where pools were segregated, so black people could not swim in swimming pools with white people, to the extent that there were there was one particular incident where a white hotel manager poured acid in the pool while black
Mm-hmm.
people were in there to get them out. Like situations like that
Yep.
happened. And then when that law was reversed, what white people did was filled up community pools with cement.
That's right.
So the white people lost out on community pools too,
Right.
because they didn't want to share it with black people. That's what whiteness does to white people too. White people miss out on stuff.
Right.
And right now we're dealing with this whole healthcare thing. All of us are going to be impacted by rising healthcare costs. All of us are going to be impacted. But there it is.
There it is.
But right now, you got people who are defending the ultra wealthy, who are telling us we can't afford to give you affordable healthcare or free healthcare because some person making $20,000 a year working a full-time job needs government assistance.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
should be working 40 hours a week and only making $20,000 a year in this economy. That shouldn't be
That's right.
happening.
That's right. That's right.
So it's
And
hurting all of us.
the current Republican lie is that this money is paying for their language here, illegal immigrants in their healthcare. By the way, even if that was true, great. You know why? Because people who are quote unquote illegal are still human beings who deserve access to healthcare. And the world's richest country can easily do that. But we're so indoctrinated to think that if the word illegal is before the next term that we use to describe someone, they automatically are less than human and are undeserving, especially given the fact that undocumented immigrants pay into the tax system in all kinds of ways, but are ineligible from using any of the benefits. It is such a inhumane, antichrist position, and to see white Christians who beat their chest with their Bibles, right, that they're standing on biblical principles, have they read the damn book? Have they read any of the verses that say, welcome the immigrant? There is no term illegal immigrant in the Bible. Someone needs to tell Mike Johnson that. And even if there was, the ethic of Christ compels us to welcome the immigrant in and to take care of them. And it is so absurd to think that we have a white Christian population that is in power that literally goes, you know what? Even though we're the world's richest country with tons of money, we hate other people so much that we refuse to cover hospital services if they take care of an undocumented immigrant who needs life-saving care. That's how cruel and dehumanizing, and dare I use the term evil, this regime is. Mm-hmm. It's wild.
And let's bring it back to the theology here, right? Because you brought up legality, and because of the way we're indoctrinated in fundamentalist Christianity, we tend to equate legality with morality.
That's good.
So because something is legal, that makes it moral. But, slavery was legal, and Jim Crow was legal, and lynching was legal. And right now, wage theft is legal. Mm-hmm. Right this very moment in which we live, it is legal for companies to rake in millions and billions of dollars in profit while their own workforce doesn't have access to clean food, housing, and healthcare. That is wage theft, and it is legal. So you really can't do anything as far as liberation. You can't accomplish anything if you're going to boil it down to legality. But in fundamentalist Christianity, it's easy to rope people into the legality conversation because the indoctrination is about obedience.
Yep. That's right.
Go ye, the Great Commission, go ye therefore, teaching them and baptizing them and teaching them to obey.
Right.
So we are indoctrinated to be obedient to the law. But Bob Marley said, you'll never get justice in a place where criminals make the law. We got criminals right now making laws.
No, you're right. Literally, a convicted felon.
Literally.
Literally.
And we're talking about legality.
Yeah, right. You're right. Again, it's one of those things where you're like, right, duh. Of course this is what would happen if you elect a convicted felon, right? Who is a white collar felon, who's also a sexual abuser. Of course this is what would happen. Of course this person is gonna break laws and not care about judges' orders and push the bullshit. This might be a good time to insert some biblical truth here. Because I know, especially my white conservative friends, they love the Bible. So James 5, a classic text here. Oddly enough, very rarely, if ever, quoted by Christian nationalists. I'm not sure why, but I'll just read it out to the audience. James 5. Now, and by the way, I'm reading word for word, NIV. Now listen, you rich people. Weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. I mean, you want Marxism. But I'm just saying, it's interesting when you read the whole collection of ancient documents that we call the Bible, how many passages like this are in there. We're like, wait a second, this is if the author of James was alive today and wrote this, Donald Trump would say, imprison this man.
Absolutely.
Stephen Miller would say, this is what's wrong with the radical left. Right, all of the white apologists would be calling this person a radical Marxist who wants communism for America, who's just jealous of other people's wages and wealth because he didn't work hard enough. Right, all of the tropes would be in place. But no, this is the ancient Bible, And I'm telling you, the author of James had no clue that I'd be saying this now in 2025 America. But it tracks. It works.
And if you go back even further than that, Tim, go back to Ezekiel, because people love to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah and how Sodom and Gomorrah was all about, gay people, and it's a condemnation to homosexuality. But the actual text that tells the story doesn't say that. But when you look at what the prophet Ezekiel says about Sodom and Gomorrah and why it was destroyed, greed and not taking care of the poor was listed.
Yeah, it's right here.
Like, so somebody said, I forget, one of these black preachers that I know, they said, if God doesn't destroy America, God owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology.
Woo. Wow. Passage. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Cut you off. The passage is this: the sin of your sister Sodom was this: she lived with her daughters in the lap of luxury, proud, gluttonous, and lazy. They ignored the oppressed and the poor. They put on airs and lived obscene lives. And you know what happened? I did away with them. Oh, weird. What I don't see here is, and they were all gay. And so that's just not in the text. It said it's gluttony, it's laziness, it's oppression of the poor. Interesting.
Yeah. And that's why I always tell people you can find whatever you're looking for in the Bible.
100%.
Because earlier we talked about how the prophet Samuel said, go commit genocide.
Right. Exactly.
And then right here, we're looking at how God was so angry with a city where no one cared about the oppressed or the poor, that according to the narrative, God just wiped it off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Because that's how angry God was, that they didn't take care of the poor.
Yeah.
So like all of this is in the same Bible. And in the same Bible, we get the greatest commandment, that you should love God and love your neighbor as yourself. So all of that stuff is in there. Some people tend to look at the Bible like, if you read the Bible, then you should walk away with this. You can walk away with anything. And a lot of times you're going to walk away with whatever you were looking for.
I mean, the same Bible that Bob Jones and white segregationists used to justify lynchings and segregation is the same Bible that Martin Luther King Jr. used. It can be used as a tool of liberation or a weapon of oppression. It's just that simple.
The same Bible that enslavers used to enslave black people is the Bible that Nat Turner used to inspire him to kill his enslaver. The same Bible. You can find whatever you're looking for. So what people of faith need to have a conversation about is, what are we looking for when we go to the Bible?
Yeah.
What kind of world do we want to see? The Lord's Prayer, or the model prayer, is thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So if I want God's will on earth to look like heaven, then I'm going to try to do whatever I can to make earth look like heaven. My decisions should lead me to make earth look like heaven. So based on the decisions that people make about what they want the earth to be like, I don't want to go to heaven with them.
That's right.
Based on the circumstances you create on earth, heaven with you doesn't sound like fun.
Right. Sounds more like hell, honestly, right?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
No, I love that. Dude, this is why you and I chat, because we could be here for hours talking about this stuff. I mean,
we didn't even get to the video we were going to do.
I know. I'll have you back on. We can get to it. I mean, there's so much there. But dude, I really do appreciate you coming on and talking and just kind of, talking about these topics, because they're just so important. And we absolutely need better ways. We need better ways, especially for people who are trying to find that better path. I think it's so important to give them things to think about that hopefully push them along that journey. It's why we have TNE Connect, and we do all these offerings, and we do the podcast. We want people to think about, not just what's wrong, which I'm really good at pointing out what's wrong. It's one of my specialties, actually, but also like, what can we do better as well? And I'm trying to get better at giving not just the audience, but myself, better paths forward, because we have to do something. So I appreciate you coming on, bro. If people want to find your work, I mean, where can they find you? Where can they listen to you? Plug away all of your social medias.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Kristian A. Smith, and that's Christian with a K. So it's the Christian Kristian A. Smith. That's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads. If you go to my Instagram, that's like my primary social media platform, and type disrupt in the comments. I'll send you some information about how to get connected with us further. Yeah, just type disrupt in the comments on my Instagram or my Facebook page, actually. And it's
Sweet.
the Kristian A. Smith. And then on YouTube, it's tfc.virtual. I'm the pastor of the faith community. It's a virtual community of faith. We post videos weekly. So yeah, check us out.
I love it, dude. Well, as always, good talking to you, man. We'll keep in touch.
All right, man. Thank you.